Welcome to Confessions by Banana Ketchup. My dad's truck was haunted by a hitchhiker ghost, and my Wiccan sister got it to leave. My sister has been able to see and communicate with the dead ever since she can remember. She practices Wicca. It is a gifted tarot card reader and started helping people rid their homes of spirits after she decided to start using her abilities to help others, including a gas station that I used to work at. My dad has always been a skeptic and truly believed my sister had a mental disorder causing her to have hallucinations. That is, up until the day his truck became home to an unwanted spirit. One evening, my dad was working late, well after dark. When he finally got home, he came into the house with a disturbed look on his face. He was quiet and went into the other room to talk to my mom. I could overhear him telling her that on his way home, he got a creepy feeling that someone was sitting right next to him in his truck. He said that all of a sudden, his airbag light turned on from the front passenger seat. That light only turns on if somebody is sitting in the seat, because it detects if there is weight on the seat. He told himself that it was probably some electrical issue, until he could actually see the outline of a dark figure sitting there out of the corner of his eye. Whenever he'd look over, it would be gone. He sped home as fast as he could so he could get out of the truck. He didn't know what to think about it, other than it scared the crap out of him. My mom witnessed my sister rid a ghost out of the gas station I worked out of, so she suggested that my sister take a look at what's in his truck. At this point, I was in the other room with them, asking him more questions about his experience. I'm not gifted like my sister is, but I'm sensitive to spirits and have always took interest in the paranormal. I even have conducted my own investigations with some friends in the past. My sister came into the room and we got her to speed with what's going on. She said that she would go check out his truck and asked me to come with her. What I experienced next still gives me the chills to this day. We went outside to his truck and my sister climbed into the driver's seat. She was silent and looked over to the passenger seat. She said, "It's still in here." She turned the truck on and the passenger airbag light turned on again like it did for our dad. I need to quick note that this was in the dead of winter in Minnesota, so it was crazy cold out and we could see our breath when we exhaled. She turned to the passenger seat and blew out a breath of air. I witnessed her breath flow forward and then float around what had to have been a solid figure in the seat, but nothing was visibly there. Chills. She turned to me and said that we need to get it out of there as soon as possible for Dad's safety. We went back into the house and she explained to our dad what it was. She said this type of spirit is known as a hitchhiker. She said that they are generally malevolent spirits that, just like a hitchhiker, jumps into random cars driving down the road. She said that these can be dangerous though, because they can do things like make your brakes go out in our car so that you'll crash, or do other things with your vehicle to ensure that you'll get injured or even die. After hearing this, as skeptical as my dad normally is, he gave her permission to do what she needs to do to get it out of his truck. She turned to me and told me that she needs me, because she needs an assistant for what she's about to do. She gathered some items from her room and we went outside. She performed some sort of a ritual outside of his truck and had me join her. I cannot remember all of the details of this ritual because it was completely new to me and this was years ago. I believe it involved a feather, a knife that she harnessed her energy through, a jar with some sort of charmed leather bag with unknown items in it and symbols painted on it, and various other tools. After performing the ritual, she smudged the inside of his truck with sage. She turned the truck on and the airbag light was still on, like someone was sitting there still. Then she wiped open all of the car doors and shouted at it to leave because it was not wanted and was never invited. She told me that it didn't want to leave and that it was being stubborn. After some time of her shouting at it and doing something else with her tools in his truck, she took a deep breath and told me that it finally left. Sure enough, the airbag light turned off in the truck. We went inside and she told my dad that she was able to get it to leave. Ever since this happened, his airbag light never turned on by itself again, and he never saw or felt some unknown being sitting in his truck again. To this day, my dad doesn't like to talk about it, but all I know is that he is now a believer and no longer thinks my sister has a mental disorder. Thank you, Ominous Cloud 218, the author. Strange things going on, and I need some opinions. Now, I honestly didn't want to post this anywhere, seeing as I wanted to ignore it since we moved into this house. I live with my father, 2 sisters and brother, and I seem to be the only one caring to notice the things happening in our home. We moved in about 5 years ago, and for the first 3 years, things were pretty quiet. I did, however, start having extremely frequent nightmares about family members or friends dying within the house, but I'd boil this down to being a result of stress. However, about 2 years ago, while renovating the kitchen in our house, we found an extremely large bloodstain under the flooring. We had been told there were a few deaths within the house, but we didn't mind much as none of us were superstitious. However, I questioned myself shortly after we redid those floors when I felt something grab my foot while sitting in my living room, which is connected to the kitchen. I jumped up and felt whatever it was let go, then called myself crazy and moved on. The nightmares worsened around this time, becoming more violent and frequent. A month or 2 later, a similar thing happened. I was playing Beat Saber on my new Oculus in my living room. My brother had been getting coffee and we had a quick conversation while he was in the kitchen. Then he left and I went back to my game. I then felt someone bump into me, almost knocking me over. I lifted up my Oculus from my eyes and snapped at my brother, who wasn't there. There were no footsteps that I heard leaving, and he was tucked away in his room already. Continuing with the trend, I'd felt something grab my foot or hand a few other times, but still just thought I was clumsy and crazy until my friend woke up around 5 in the morning at a sleepover. She's extremely hard to wake up and jolted up. She then looked at me and glared, and I quickly questioned if I'd woken her up with the TV. She said I'd scratched her, in which I obviously hadn't. She had a mark on her leg that looked similar to if someone had scratched her with long or acrylic nails. I would know as my sister has accidentally scratched me with hers before. The one which scared me the most was about 2 months ago. I'd gotten off a call with my friend and said I was heading to bed. I jolted up 3 or 4 times thinking someone had said my name, but it was in between the hours of 2 and 5 a.m. and no one was up. Not to mention, it sounded right next to me. The final time it happened that night, approximately 5:30 a.m., I heard an extremely raspy, "Wake up, hi guy, I'm mom," followed by a sharp pain on my foot. I jolted up and checked out my foot. Blood started pouring from an injury that was not on my foot prior to going to bed that night. It was deep, and I had to get up and try and stop the bleeding. I sat there for a second and then texted a friend who was up taking care of her little brother. She told me it was probably nothing, and my dad told me to wash off the injury and that it was probably nothing. Since then, I've been frequently woken up by the same voice saying my name, among other things in that raspy voice. Keep feeling something grab me, waking up with random injuries ranging from bruising to large bleeding scratches, and nightmares almost every night about my loved ones dying. My friend on Discord calls also constantly asks me who I'm with, or who was speaking when I've heard nothing and no one else is in the room. I have no clue what's going on or what to think about this situation. It's driving me crazy at this point, but I don't really do paranormal research in my free time, so I wasn't sure if it's some sort of ghost or whatever, or I'm just crazy. I had no other place but here to post this, and felt the need to ask and share this with someone who knows more about the topic. Thank you, hi guy, I'm mom, the author. Random events I experienced when sleeping over at my grandma's place when I was a teenager. I remember as an old teenager, I'd often spend my time at my grandparents' home. After my grandpa died, it became more frequently. I protested mostly when I had to go, but rarely had a choice since my parents didn't want my grandma to be lonely, and plus, I was the only grandchild at the time. I remember one evening when we were cleaning and were in the dining room where the front door was visible from where we were, she had this shoe rack by the door. We were both facing in that direction when a shoe came flying off the rack and towards us. The door was closed and no one could have thrown it, not anyone made of matter anyway. She tried to explain the event away, but I knew it didn't make sense. The next night, I was in bed and could hear thudding on the floor from the basement. I lay there wondering if my grandma had gone to the basement in the middle of the night, but she was in bed. I opened the door to the basement and it was dark down there, so I didn't bother. I returned to the room where I was staying and the noise stopped. Not long after, I could hear a scratching from the attic. I wrote it off as a wild animal maybe stuck up there. I tried to go to sleep. A few weeks later, I was there again. This time, after 3 a.m., my grandma shook me awake. I woke and asked her what was wrong. She told me she saw someone walking by her bedroom door, headed toward the end of the hall where my bedroom was. She said she peeked around the corner and saw a figure in the dark cloak watching me through the slightly open door. She said she sat on her bed and prayed. After she was done, she looked again, the figure was gone, and she woke me up. I got the chills when she told me. We stayed up until the sun come up. During that time, she told me what has been happening in the house to her. She said she was having the house blessed, and if it didn't stop, she would move. She did end up moving. Even to this day, I sometimes experience random things that don't make sense, not as intense as what happened at my grandma's house. Thank you, Just Her 87, the author. Thank you for watching, everyone. If you already haven't, subscribe to this channel so you don't miss any new episodes. See you again soon, and until then, please be safe.